I bought my little cabin up in the pines for one reason: peace. No HOA, no nosy neighbors, no city noise, just me, the crackle of a wood stove, and the quiet rhythm of mountain life. At least that's what I thought. But trouble has a funny way of finding you, even in the middle of nowhere. It started with a letter tucked under my cabin door, stamped with a fake-looking HOA logo. I laughed at first because out here there isn't even an HOA, but the demands were real: cut my trees, repaint my siding, pay a $500 community compliance fee. I figured it was some prank until I met her. Karen. She showed up in a pressed blazer and sunglasses, introducing herself as head of the property committee. She wasn't friendly. She didn't smile. She looked at my cabin like it was an infection on her mountain. When I told her to take her made-up rules and shove them, she pursed her lips, pulled out her phone, and said, "Then I'll send security." I thought she was bluffing. 2 nights later, a black SUV with flashing yellow lights crawled up my dirt driveway. Out piled 4 guys in matching polos with HOA security embroidered on the chest. They weren't cops. They weren't even rent-a-cops, just big dudes who thought intimidation would get them somewhere. They started circling my cabin, shining flashlights in my windows, muttering about code violations. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the sheer absurdity. I was in the middle of deciding whether to call the sheriff or handle it myself when I heard it. The low rolling thunder of Harley-Davidsons. Headlights cut through the trees. Engines roared louder and louder until the night shook with the sound of American steel. One by one, my cousins, combat vets every last one, pulled into my driveway on their bikes, boots hitting the gravel in unison. The so-called HOA security froze. They weren't ready for what came next. Before we go on, hit subscribe, so stories like this reach you first. I never set out to pick a fight with anyone. After years of grinding it out in the city, traffic jams, impossible rent, bosses who thought weekend was just a suggestion, I finally scraped enough together to buy a cabin in the mountains. It wasn't huge, just a 1-story place with a tin roof, a deck that looked west over the ridges, and enough space out back for a fire pit and a stack of split oak. To me it was heaven. Out here you didn't hear car horns or sirens. You heard wind whistling through the pines. You heard owls calling after dark. You heard nothing at all, and that was the sweetest sound of all. The nearest town was 15 miles downhill. The nearest paved road? About half that. Out here people minded their own business. Some were retirees. Some were hunters or old ranch families. Some were like me, just looking for quiet. And most important of all, there was no HOA. That was one of the first things the realtor told me when I signed the papers. No neighborhood covenants, no dues, no board meetings, none of that junk. Up here, it's your land, your rules. That line alone probably sold me faster than the view. For the first year, life was simple. I stacked firewood, fixed up the porch, hiked the trails, and learned how to keep raccoons out of my trash cans. My cousins visited sometimes, rolling up on their Harleys like thunder out of a clear sky. They were army boys, guys who had done tours overseas and come home with scars, stories, and a tight brotherhood. Whenever they visited, the whole mountain seemed to rumble with the sound of their bikes, and the locals knew right away, those weren't men to mess with. Then came Karen. The first time I saw her, I thought she was a lost tourist. She pulled up in a spotless silver SUV, hair sprayed into a helmet, oversized sunglasses covering half her face. She got out, heels clicking against the gravel, and stood there like she was surveying a crime scene. "You live here?" she asked, without so much as a hello. "Yeah," I said, leaning on my porch railing. "Can I help you with something?" She pursed her lips. "This cabin, it's not up to community standards." I blinked at her. "Community standards? Lady, what community? This is the middle of nowhere." She introduced herself as the president of the Pine Ridge Property Committee. I'd never heard of it. Neither had any of my neighbors. She rattled off some nonsense about regulations, color palettes, tree trimming requirements, and how my cabin disrupted the harmony of the mountain aesthetic. I tried not to laugh. "Look, there's no HOA out here. That's why I bought the place. You don't get to tell me what color to paint my siding." Her lips thinned into a razor blade smile. "We'll see about that." That was the end of our first meeting. She stormed off, muttering into her phone, and I didn't think much of it. Some city transplant playing neighborhood cop, I figured. It wasn't until a week later that the letters started. One envelope after another, stamped with some official-looking logo she clearly made on her computer, showed up under my door. Notice of violation. Final warning. Mandatory fine. Each one threatened penalties if I didn't comply. Trim the trees, repaint the cabin, pay fees. The numbers kept climbing. $250, $500, $1,000. I ignored them all. Then she escalated. One afternoon I came back from town and found a bright orange paper nailed to my porch. "Stop work order," it read in bold block letters, like something from a government office. Except nobody but Karen had the authority to put it there, and she had no actual authority at all. That's when I started keeping a closer eye out. My dog barked at strange cars creeping down the road at night. I found tire tracks in the dirt by my woodpile. And one evening, I actually caught Karen standing at the edge of my property snapping photos of my cabin like she was building a case file. I walked out with a flashlight and said, "You're trespassing. Leave." She didn't budge. "I'm documenting violations. Lady, there's no HOA here." "You're wasting your time." She finally left, but not before saying something that made the hair on my neck stand up. "If you won't respect the rules, I'll make you." Now, I wasn't exactly scared of Karen, but something in her tone told me she wasn't finished. I just didn't know how far she was willing to take it. That answer came a few nights later, when I saw the yellow lights flashing through the trees. The first time I saw the black SUV crawl up my dirt road, I thought maybe hunters had gotten lost. But then I saw the stenciled lettering on the side, HOA Security. I almost laughed out loud. Almost. 4 guys piled out. They were big, heavy-set types, wearing matching polos with embroidered patches. None of them carried guns, at least not openly, but they had the look of men who thought intimidation was a weapon in itself. They spread out across my property like they owned the place. One of them shined a flashlight straight into my window. Another jotted notes on a clipboard. A third started tugging at the gate to my woodpile like he was inspecting it. I stepped out onto the porch with my hands in my pockets, casual as could be. "You boys lost?" The one with the clipboard sneered. "This property has multiple violations. We're here to enforce compliance." "Compliance with what?" I asked. "This isn't a neighborhood." "There's no HOA," he smirked like he'd heard it before. "You'll have to take that up with the Pine Ridge Property Committee." "Karen." I shook my head. "Look, you don't have any authority here. You're trespassing. Leave now." That's when the biggest of the bunch stepped forward. He was easily 6'4", arms like tree trunks, the kind of guy who probably benched cars for fun. He cracked his knuckles. "Or what?" My dog growled from inside the cabin. My hand twitched toward the baseball bat I kept by the door. For a few tense seconds it was just me, them, and the cold mountain air pressing down. Then one of them muttered, "We'll be back," and they piled into their SUV, tires spitting gravel as they roared down the road. I figured that was the end of it, until the next night when they came back. This time they parked at the edge of my drive, lights flashing like they were staging some kind of raid. My patience snapped. I dialed the sheriff. To his credit, he came out fast. Old-timer named Jenkins, been working the county longer than I'd been alive. He took one look at the security team and barked, "You boys got permits?" "Authority? Badges?" They mumbled excuses. Karen herself showed up, clipboard in hand, claiming they were authorized private security. Jenkins laughed so hard I thought he might choke. He told them if they didn't clear out, he'd arrest the lot of them for trespassing. They left, but not quietly. As they drove off, Karen rolled down her window and hissed, "You'll regret this." I didn't know it yet, but she had one more card to play. And that's when I made the call to my cousins. The night it all came to a head was colder than usual. A storm was rolling in from the west, the kind that makes the air heavy and electric. I'd just finished stacking firewood when I heard it again, the low rumble of an engine crawling. Up the mountain road. I knew before I even saw the headlights. Karen's black SUV pulled into my driveway, and right behind it, 2 more identical ones. Out poured her so-called HOA security, this time doubled in number. 8 guys, all bigger, louder, and cockier than before. One of them barked orders like he was leading a military unit. "Surround the property. Document everything. We'll seize assets if necessary." "Seize assets?" I stepped out onto the porch, ball cap pulled low, baseball bat in hand. "This is your last warning," I said. my voice carrying through the cold night. "You're trespassing on private land." Karen emerged from her SUV like she was royalty. Perfect hair, clipboard clutched tight, a smug grin plastered across her face. "This property has been deemed non-compliant," she announced. "Effective immediately, it is subject to repossession by the Pine Ridge Property Committee." That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to find me. She was trying to steal my cabin. The men started up the steps. My dog was going wild inside, teeth bared at the window. My pulse pounded. I was seconds from swinging when it happened. The night erupted with the sound of thunder. Not the storm, not fireworks. Harleys. The unmistakable roar of V-twins echoed through the trees, louder and louder, until the gravel road glowed with dozens of headlights. My cousins had arrived. One by one, they pulled into my driveway, 6 of them, leather jackets patched with army insignia, faces hard as stone, eyes sharp from years of combat. Their boots hit the ground in perfect rhythm, the crunch of gravel drowned out only by the steady idle of their bikes. Karen's security froze mid-step. The clipboard leader glanced at Karen. She gave a shaky little nod, but her voice wavered when she said, "Don't just stand there." "Handle it!" But none of her guys moved. My cousin Luke, a tank of a man who'd served 2 tours overseas, stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just spoke in that low, calm tone soldiers use before a fight. "You boys lost?" The biggest of the security men, tree trunk arms, same guy from before, tried to puff up his chest. "This doesn't concern you." Luke's lips curled into a smirk. "Funny, looks like it does." Another cousin, Jesse, revved his Harley so loud the ground shook. The sound echoed off the mountains like artillery. The security team flinched. Karen sputtered, waving her clipboard like a sword. "They're trespassing. They have no right to interfere. Arrest them!" Luke took one slow step up the porch and looked her dead in the eye. "Lady, you've been playing dress-up with fake security, harassing a man on his own land, and trying to steal his property. Where I come from, that's not just illegal. It's dangerous." The tallest of the security men looked at Luke, then at the 6 bikers, then back at Karen. "Ma'am," he muttered. "Maybe we should—" "No!" Karen snapped. "Stand your ground!" But it was too late. The standoff had broken. One of my cousins flicked a chain from his jacket pocket and let it clink against the gravel. Another casually pulled a folding knife from his boot, twirling it between his fingers like it was a toy. These weren't threats. They were warnings, the kind that said, "You don't want to push this." The security guys started backing up. Their bravado melted with every step. Karen shrieked at them. "Cowards! Do your job!" But they didn't. One by one, they climbed back into their SUVs. Engines coughed, gears ground, and in less than a minute, all 3 vehicles were backing down my driveway, taillights vanishing into the trees. The only sound left was the growl of Harley engines and Karen's panicked breathing. She stood frozen, clipboard clutched so tight her knuckles turned white. My cousins surrounded her, not threatening, not touching, just circling, their boots heavy on the gravel. Luke leaned down until he was eye level with her. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You ever come back here with your fake rules and your fake security, you won't be dealing with the sheriff. You'll be dealing with us. Do you understand?" Karen's jaw quivered. She nodded once, then twice, then bolted to her SUV like a rabbit running from wolves. Tires spun, rocks flew, and within seconds she was gone. The storm finally broke then. Rain started to fall, hissing on hot motorcycle pipes, washing the tension from the air. Luke clapped me on the shoulder. "Told you to call us if you ever needed backup." I just stood there, shaking my head, heart racing, watching the last glow of Karen's taillights disappear into the night. She thought she could intimidate me with fake authority. She didn't count on my family rolling deep on Harleys, forged in fire, loyal to the bone. And she sure as hell didn't count on them choosing the wrong cabin. By the next morning, word had spread down the mountain faster than wildfire. Folks at the gas station, the diner, even the post office were buzzing with the story. Karen brought fake security to the cabin and got run off by a pack of army bikers. I didn't even have to tell it. Neighbors filled in the details themselves, each version more dramatic than the last. By noon, Karen wasn't just a nuisance. She was a laughingstock. Sheriff Jenkins stopped by that afternoon, coffee thermos in hand, shaking his head. "Heard you had a little excitement last night," he said dryly. "Funny thing is, I got 3 separate calls from folks who say they don't want Karen bothering them anymore either." Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd harassed. She'd been trying to organize other mountain residents, pushing them to sign bogus HOA paperwork, threatening them with fines. Most ignored her, but a few elderly couples had been shaken up by her tactics. This time, though, she'd gone too far. Jenkins grinned, filing a report on her little security force. Fake uniforms, fake authority, attempted extortion. If she's smart, she'll pack up and leave before the county prosecutor starts sniffing around. And she did. Within a week, her silver SUV was gone from the mountain roads. The cabin she rented at the base of the ridge sat empty, blinds drawn tight. Nobody saw her again. The mountain exhaled. My cousins stayed a few days longer. We sat around the fire pit, the rain-washed air crisp and clean, swapping stories that had nothing to do with Karen. They laughed, they rode. They reminded me what real family looks like, the kind that shows up when the night is darkest. Not because they have to, but because loyalty runs in their blood. Life slowly returned to what it was meant to be. Quiet mornings with coffee on the deck, long hikes through the pines, nights under the stars without the glare of SUV headlights. Sometimes I still find one of Karen's fake violation notices stuffed in an old drawer. I keep one tacked to the inside of the cabin door. Not as a warning, but as a reminder, because in the end, it wasn't about Karen or her phony HOA or the goons she hired. It was about standing your ground, about refusing to bow to bullies, and about the power of family, the kind that rolls in like thunder when you need them most. The mountain is quiet again, but if trouble ever dares come crawling back up this dirt road, I know one thing for sure. They'll hear the roar of Harleys long before they reach my porch.